Today we are working on some grid work. This is a grid I set out earlier. What we're trying to work on with this grid is we're trying to work on straightness and suppleness for the horse. So what we're going to start with is some guide poles to help the horse on the way in and making sure he stays straight, making sure he's set up nicely. We're coming into a little placing pole so that we can help the horse to find the stride on the way in. And then we're going to be carrying on over a little bounce. We're going to go into a one stride with a placing pole again to help the horse to set himself up on the correct stride for the second part. We got some guide poles in the last part because we're not going to put a placing pole in there, and it's just to help the horse keep straight. And then we're going to end up out over an oxer. As we build this up, the two things that is really important to be thinking about is the horse itself. With a grid, we're not trying to make the horse work too hard. We're trying to keep the horse supple. We're trying to strengthen the horse up. So we're starting off small, which is going to also help us to make sure that we've got the right striding for the horse. Sometimes we're going to have to shorten it, sometimes we're going to have to lengthen it. We always want to get back to the original distance that we want, but we also don't want the horse to be overstretching as they start, or also coming through a grid that they're finding too short and panicking a little bit. So we'll start with the bounces, and we're going to go into some poles on the floor. And as we're making sure that the horse has got the right striding, we'll start to build the fences up, and we'll adjust the striding accordingly to how the horse needs it to be to make sure that they're comfortable going through the grid. He had a little look as he came through. That's why we start with the poles on the floor, because he's a young horse, he's only 6. So he did have a little look as he came in, which made the distance a little bit long. So we're just going to take him through again, see if he then covers the distance a little bit better. If he doesn't, we can start adjusting it as to the horse's needs. Now that he's got used to the poles on the floor and the little fences as he comes in, he's covered the ground a lot better. He was a little bit more excited that time, he's a little bit more keen, but it's good that now he's covering the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some little fences where the poles are, and we're just going to see if we can get him to relax down a little bit and start to jump a little bit more over his back. So we've now added 2 fences in. We've added the first fence here with some V-poles just to help with straightness. And then we've added a little fence on the way out before we put the oxer in, just to get him used to it, just so he's seen it, and just so that he's comfortable going over it and he's not going to come in and spook and give us a big jump on the way out. So we got a little bit long on the way in, but the pole helped to get the horse to cover the ground. As he had jumped over the bounces, he had to stretch a little bit, but then he covered nicely the ground in the one stride and the one stride on the way out. And he's starting to drop his head and look a little bit more down, so he's working better over the back there. Very good. Now wait in your stirrups and just relax. So he came in a little bit quick there. Once he had got through the bounces, so the next time we do that, we might just shorten the pole a little bit here on the landing side of the second bounce so that it stops him from overstretching as he comes into the grid. And we're also going to work on, as we're coming through, sitting up a little bit more so that we just use our body, not the reins, because we don't want to disrupt the horse's head, but we're using our body to help steady the horse a little bit. But he jumped out very good, so it's only the middle part that we want to work on a little bit there. As he jumped out, he dropped his head nicely and he stayed nice and straight as he came through. Now sit up. Very good. So there, this time he didn't rush on the way through. Moving the pole there just helped him just to not stretch too much as he went over the second bounce. He kept his head down there, he jumped over his shoulder, and he kept the same rhythm as he went through. He didn't start to rush, he didn't start to drift. So that is exactly what we're looking for there as he goes through the grid. Tall, steady. So there we got a little bit quick as we came round the corner. Colin pulled in a little bit too much there as we came into the first part, so we had a little stand on the pole. That's why we use the foam poles on the takeoff and with the middle part just here, so that if they do get a little bit forward, if they do end up stepping on the poles, it stops them from either twisting a joint, injuring themselves. So The foam poles are very good to be using there. So we'll come again and we'll just try and get him to steady a little bit more around the corner, stop him rushing on the way in. And then hopefully that will help to make the rest of the grid a little bit more consistent. Good, sit up. Good, it got a little bit long on the way in, okay, but that's okay. And then we did end up with a little bit of drift, so we just want to do that again without the drift to the left. I just want you to use a little bit of outside leg, try and keep him a little bit straighter as he goes through. Good, balance and then straight. Good. Much better there, we were much straighter that time. We kept a little bit more outside leg. We didn't push on to ask him to jump the fences. And then he worked over his back as he came through, and he came through a lot straighter. The idea with the grid is not to go too big. So Colin jumps 120s, and obviously this grid is set up a maximum of 110 there. We don't want to be over jumping through a grid, because the idea is to be able to help keep them straight, help keep them jumping, and for them not to be overworking as they go through. You can make it a little bit more difficult by adding in extra bounces. We could add a bounce in where the placing pole is just here. We want to be working on their strength and their suppleness rather than getting them to jump big fences as they go through. We don't want to make them overwork on the way out. We could go a little bit wider with the oxer, but we don't want to go higher. We want to be teaching them to stretch, but stretch from the rhythm that they're in rather than stretch by pushing them faster at the fence. And the idea is just to be building their strength up, building their confidence up, and keeping them straight, making them work over their back. So we want to see them dropping their head. We don't want them coming through with their head up, and we don't want to be fighting or disrupting the rhythm as they go through. Obviously the last time there, Colin's now getting a little bit more tired as he goes through, so he's finding it a little bit harder. We're having to put a little bit more leg on there, but he's still kept in his rhythm, he's still jumped through nicely, and he still stayed straight.